Good morning, and thank you for joining us. We start now with some breaking news. An Ethiopian Airlines flight has reportedly been hijacked and flown to Geneva. The plane has landed at Geneva after apparently being hijacked over Africa. The plane has landed safely in Geneva, and we will be bringing you more information as the story develops. And on to our top story for this morning. Lawyers for the deposed Egyptian president, Mohamed Morsi, have walked out of his trial on charges of espionage and conspiring to commit acts of terror. The trial, which has now been adjourned until next week, is only one of 4 separate trials that the Islamist former leader is facing. We are joined now in the studio by I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waked. Hi, Ali. Thank you for joining us. So is Morsi's trial just another show trial? He, of course, has been walking out of his own trial with his lawyers after they protested that he was in a soundproof glass cage and you know, trying to find always these nuances to just stop this trial. Is it just for show?
I think it is a show from the point of view of the government, but from the Muslim Brotherhood point of view, it is very crucial. I think we cannot separate what is happening to Morsi and his trial and the trials of the Brotherhood leaders and what is happening on Sinai. This is why I don't like when we define this as a show. It is the context is very deep, very crucial to the future of Egypt and to the relation of the new power and the more radical Islamic groups.
But this is, of course, only one of 4 trials that Morsi is going to be tried. He's going to be in court quite a lot in the next few months, maybe a few years. But he was very popular about a year ago. And you see now Sisi's popularity is on the high rise. The media is backing Sisi. Can we say, I mean,
let's put things in proportions. I think when we see that only 30+% of the Egyptians participated in the referendum, we cannot speak about Sisi being so popular in comparison to Morsi. The Egyptian people is expressing mistrust towards both Sisi and the Muslim Brotherhood. They think that both sides are fighting on power and forgetting the Egyptian people, forgetting the Egyptian economy, and I think that the last word was not yet said on this matchup between Muslim Brotherhood and the regime. Yesterday, we just taste one of what can happen if this issue won't come very quickly to an end, continuing and keeping this trial while the Egyptian people feels the country is not improving, not on the democratic values, not on the economic issue, places of jobs, etc. I think the situation in Egypt is not so Muslim Brotherhood against the current regime, against the establishment. A third player, we are seeing more and more activists from the youth calling for initiative that put youth in the center against the two sides.
And another, of course, pivotal event, we might call it, was, of course, yesterday's attack in the Sinai Peninsula in Taba, a city very close to the Israeli border. And what was different from this attack, we've seen many attacks in this area, but this time it targeted specifically foreign tourists.
And they are targeting the Egyptian economy. When you target policemen and Egyptian soldiers, you know that this is one-to-one, you and against the establishment, you against the regime. But now the Islamic groups sent a very clear message yesterday. We are fighting the state. We are fighting the whole establishment. We are fighting one of the last resources of the Egyptian incomes, of the Egyptian economy is the tourism. And if we are back to the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s where tourists started to be targeted, I think that it says one thing. It says that the Egyptian deadlock is going to be much more complicated.
Throughout the revolution, if you can say, throughout the Arab Spring in Egypt, since that very day in January in 2011, the Egyptian tourism industry really has not been affected.
It has, but it not to that levels that endanger deeply the Egyptian economy. In the last couple of months, we are hearing reports that saying that there is a big, important regression in the numbers of tourists coming to Egypt. I think this attack is very strong, hurt strongly the Egyptian tourism, the Egyptian economy, no doubt, and it challenges the regime more than it challenged it in the last 10 months. And I think the Egyptian people will now expect from Sisi more than slogans, but steps on the ground that aim first to put life against in the economy, to stop this kind of attacks, because we cannot separate what is happening in Egypt now and what is happening in the Delta and what is happening in Cairo. Egypt is going clearly towards a civil war, and Sisi will be expected to bring clear steps how he is planning to fight beyond slogans and beyond TV shows, how he is going to bring another hope to the Egyptian people.
And of course, because of the proximity to the Israeli border, Taba is right on the Israeli border. It highlights also any kind of cooperation or maybe lack of cooperation between Israel and Egyptian security forces. We know that throughout Mubarak and Morsi, the relationship changed. But is it still as strong in terms of security as it used to be?
Yeah, the relation might have been changed between the leaders. It didn't change between the security forces, and especially between the intelligence services of both countries. I know that there are close ties between two sides. The fact that the Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis, this jihadi group that is acting on the border and from time to time shooting rockets also towards Eilat, is a common challenge to both security organizations. And I'm expecting to see a growing cooperation between both sides.
And you say, of course, Egyptians are heading to civil war. Little groups like this, how are they just, thorns, or are they actually groups that are threatening the stability of Egypt? The civil war, where is it going to come from? From the little groups like this, or from the larger Muslim Brotherhood supporters and so forth?
No, it will come from many sources. I think the fact that more and more youth organizations, you should only go to a youth forum in Egypt calling for this initiative, both on local basis and also on national basis. The fact that the Muslim Brotherhood are more and more giving the green light for jihadist group, and some of their members are being part of networks that were discovered, showed the fact that if until a couple of months ago the Muslim Brotherhood were not going directly to be involved in these fights, in these fire clashes, I think the ties between Muslim Brotherhood and the jihadist group will be strengthened in the coming future. In the Delta, we are seeing some of what happened in Egypt. It is true that the Egyptian regime for the moment is trying to minimize and to reduce the impact of these attacks in the Delta and in Cairo in comparison to Sinai. But whole Egypt is becoming a front of confrontation between the Islamic different groups. Once we used to say the jihadist group, but the Islamic different groups and the regime.
Thank you, Ali Waked. Ukrainian anti-government protesters have ended a 2-month-old occupation of City Hall in the capital of Kiev to meet an amnesty offer aimed at easing a standoff over President Viktor Yanukovych's rule. To hear more about it, we are joined by Russia Today Middle East Bureau Chief Paula Slyer. Hi, Paula. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to have a quick look at the following report, and then we'll chat.
It's been over 2 months since anti-government protesters stormed and occupied Kiev City Hall. And now they are handing it back. The move came as part of an agreement with the Ukrainian government after last month the country's parliament agreed to grant amnesty to demonstrators arrested during the recent unrest. Authorities have offered to drop all criminal charges against the activists as long as the municipal buildings are cleared by Monday.
It's hard to consider this a victory or a defeat, but for the lives of those illegitimately arrested, the innocent, perhaps it's worth it.
The Swiss ambassador to Ukraine, Christian Schonenberg, who served as a middleman between the two sides, was the first to welcome the move.
Both sides made a compromise, so it's not the protesters alone, it's not the Kiev city administration alone who made a step towards the other, but they really that they went one step towards each other.
The opposition and its supporters may have agreed to carry out their side of the bargain, but also made it clear they expect the government to do the same.
We are waiting now for the general prosecutor's order, and we expect him to comply with their set of conditions as stated in the amnesty law. If he doesn't issue such an order, we have the right to take all these buildings back under the people's control.
But as buildings are cleared, the barricades in the capital's Independence Square are reinforced. And while there is a growing feeling one fight is over, for the demonstrators, the message is loud and clear. Until President Viktor Yanukovych steps down, the battle will continue.
So, Paula, what may have seemed like a revolution or the start of a revolution has been, diminished almost immediately.
Well, I don't know if it's almost immediately. It is about 2 months, and they were 2 long months for the people of Ukraine. The question is still out. The jury still needs to decide whether or not these demonstrations were successful. But certainly, by all accounts, it does seem as if these anti-government protesters have failed. Essentially, they were on the streets saying, we're not going to remove ourselves unless President Yanukovych steps down. He hasn't stepped down, right. And now they're off the streets with this amnesty that goes into effect today.
Which is a carrot and stick kind of policy. It really didn't, serve their interest as opposition, but it has calmed the waters in terms of Yanukovych.
It certainly has calmed the waters. I mean, the problem is that you still have an extremely tense situation on the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow the protesters are back on the streets. You also have a very weak economy. You have massive unemployment, and none of those issues have been addressed. Of course, the opposition is trying to make out as if they won this whole demonstration, and they're saying that they will continue to push the parliament for reforms. They want to see constitutional reforms. There is some talk of negotiations about some kind of power-sharing deal. We don't know the exact terms. It's not clear how much power President Yanukovych is prepared to hand over and how this new power-sharing deal will actually look. Tomorrow he is expected to present his candidate for Prime Minister, but essentially you still have a very, very fluid situation on the ground there.
But what went wrong within the opposition? Of course, the opposition is looking at itself, as you say, they think they did have a small victory, but I'm sure, and the media is portraying at least, that the opposition lost big time, if you will.
The opposition really is very, very divided. You have 3 main opposition parties that could never really reach an agreement over a framework. They're split amongst themselves, and there were different kind of statements coming out from opposition leaders. You had one leader saying that we need to embrace the 2004 Constitution. You had another saying we need to dissolve the 2004 Constitution. The other problem is also it's very easy to mobilize people against President Yanukovych, but what next? And they never really came up with a plan of how to take these demonstrations further. So those kind of splits and divisions within the opposition meant that they weren't able to mobilize the Ukrainian anti-government protesters sufficiently enough to bring down the government in the long term.
And what also they weren't able to do is, as you say, weren't able to formulate one vision for what they wanted, which was even backed by international states and leaders that tried to intervene, but they only intervened when there was violence, when the violence reached a level that they had to say something. But in terms of the internal policies, no one really said anything. Maybe here and there, Russia.
Correct. I mean, I just returned from the Ukraine, and this is a country that's very deeply divided between the East and the West. When you look at Eastern Ukraine, you have very, 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 very big support there for Russia. I mean, people are speaking Russian as a first language and Ukrainian as a second language. And I was talking to a lot of coal miners, particularly in the city of Donetsk, which is a coal mining city, and they were complaining that they're the industrial heartland of the country. They're keeping the economy going. They literally don't have the time to go to protests and stand in front of government buildings. And then when you move to the west of the country, and I was in Ivano-Francevsk there, people level exactly the same charges back, that the people in the east are under the thumb of Russia, and that is their claim about President Yanukovych. The criticism against Europe is that Europe is very quick to say we support these protests and we want to do something, but nothing actually happened on the ground, and that was a criticism on both sides. Yes, Europe wants to see an association agreement signed with Ukraine, but is Europe prepared to actually buy Ukrainian goods? Are they prepared to make their words good on the ground? And we didn't see that coming through.
And one of the biggest criticisms was the opposition was in this kind of illusion that they're going to be joining the EU, and Europe, of course, only intervened when there was a certain level of violence that they had to say something.
Correct.
Kind of like lip service.
Correct. I mean, the whole protest was sparked because President Yanukovych didn't sign an association agreement with the European Union, and I think there was some misunderstanding, and certainly amongst protesters that I spoke to, they actually thought that this was going to pave the way for Ukraine to become part of the European Union, and it was not. And the interesting thing is when I was speaking to those protesters who so vehemently support being part of Europe, none of the ones I spoke to spoke English. They were telling me things that now they can travel freely within Europe. They want to be watching more European films, things like that, which actually are not the reality in terms of what that agreement meant in the first place.
And when you look at it geopolitically, does this mean that now Putin has this new, not new, or maybe just a strengthened leadership role in the region? Because now Ukraine is not as European as they thought they would be.
I'm not sure he necessarily has a more strengthened role. What we have seen is Russia give something like a $15 billion bailout to the Ukraine, and certainly the sense on the ground, but again, it's going to be amongst those Ukrainians who supported Russia and Putin from the beginning, is that Russia comes to the party and Russia supports them. The latest word from Putin is that he will support dialogue and interaction between Ukraine and the European Union, but he has said that all along. The problem is just what that dialogue entails and what it means in terms of Ukraine moving further away from Russia. Let me make the point again that we're talking here about a divided country.
It's still as divided as it was.
When we talk about the Ukraine, you've got half the country that really wants to be part of Russia and associated with Putin, and you've got the other half that still wants to be associated with the European Union. And the fact that the demonstrators are now off the ground doesn't actually change the reality on the ground.
Parliament will be reconvened, and we're going to hear about a new candidate. Paula Slyer, thank you for joining us. And after the break, the Italian president is set to ask 39-year-old Matteo Renzi to form a new government. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. And welcome back to I-24 News Morning Edition. We're going back to our breaking news story. An Ethiopian Airlines plane en route from Addis Ababa has been forced to land in Geneva. With me is Paula Slyer. Thank you for staying with us. What are the latest details that we know? We know that the passengers are on the ground in Geneva and supposedly safe.
Yes, I mean, the details are still sketchy, so we're still getting preliminary information at this stage. What we do know is that it was a scheduled flight. It was an Ethiopian Airlines flight. This is an airline that is wholly owned by the Ethiopian government. It was leaving Addis Ababa on its way to Rome, and somewhere when it was flying over Sudan, the plane emitted what is known as a 7500 code. Now, this is a code that does indicate that there has been a hijacking. It wasn't immediately clear whether there had been a malfunction or whether, in fact, there was a hijacking on board. But subsequently, the plane was seen to be doing multiple circles in the sky before it landed at Geneva International Airport. Now, the latest information we have, as you say, all the crew and passengers are safe. It's a statement that was released by the airline itself. We understand that they're still in the airport building, but that the plane itself is parked at the end of the runway, and we're being told that the police are in negotiations with the hijackers. Who these hijackers are and what their precise demands are is still unclear. But again, we understand that there is some kind of negotiation happening at the airport.
Okay, we will be continuing to update on the story. Thank you, Paula, for joining us. Let's say hello now and good morning to our one and only Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you may have missed while scanning the headlines. So, Anthony, this is not in the morning headlines, of course. It's just happened right now. But what is the top stories in today's papers?
Well, this is a very interesting story for the Middle East region, which I wanted to draw everybody's attention to. It's in Saudi Arabia, actually. And Al Arabiya has reported that Saudi Gazette, which is Saudi Arabia's leading English language newspaper, has appointed its first female newspaper editor.
Wow.
Yeah, a rare bit of actually super news in the journalistic and media world in the Middle East region.
Well, it depends how much editorial freedom she's going to have, I guess. Is it just for show, or is it, like
Actually, she rose through the ranks. She was working as a deputy editor at this paper, which I actually often use their headlines on our very own broadcast for news from Saudi Arabia. And so she's very qualified. She's been in the business for a while, and it is a precedent setting for Saudi Arabia, so it's one to watch.
Well, we'll see if if she's able to drive to work. I don't know if she's able to drive. I mean, that's
that
the big
I don't
question.
know. I'll have to
she can
follow
edit
up with
the
that.
newspaper, but I don't know if she's able to drive to work. All right.
Anyways, her name is Samaya Jabarti, and big shout out to her, of course. So anyway,
well, congratulations.
Yeah. Also in
staying
in the Middle East region, we have the Daily Star in Beirut, which reports on some developments in Iraq, which are quite interesting. A powerful Iraqi Shiite cleric, Muqtada al-Sadr, has quit politics. Now, who is this guy? He was someone who led fierce opposition to the United States following the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, and he was the man behind the widely feared Mahdi army, which was led battles against the American forces, and responsible for a lot of sectarian clashes in Iraq during that time frame. Now he's stepped out of politics. And
did he cite a reason?
I think he's just had it.
Well,
it seems to be the
yeah.
implication.
I mean,
but
it's hard to keep a tenure in Baghdad.
Yeah, it is. It is. But the fact that it sort of closes a certain chapter in the American-Iraqi saga there. So I'm not sure how much play that's getting in the U.S. press, but it was noted in the Lebanese press because of the sectarian issues there, perhaps.
What else? Now going back to speaking about America.
The New York Times.
Yeah.
Fascinating story here about the NSA, yet again in the news. This time, spying by the National Security Agency ally entangled U.S. law firm. Now, what this is saying is that a secret document obtained by, of course, Edward Snowden has revealed that an American law firm, possibly based in Chicago, was being monitored by the NSA's Australian counterpart while the law firm was representing the government of Indonesia in a trade dispute with the federal government.
Take me through that one more time. So Edward Snowden is revealing documents that show...
Actually, Laura Poitras, who was the one that was working with Glenn Greenwald a way back, is the one that bylines this story in the Times front pager, obtained yet another document from Snowden implicating the NSA in surveillance on a private American law firm. It's the first time this has happened.
Who are these clients that they're so interested in?
The client is the government of Indonesia.
Wow.
Yeah, so the stakes are pretty high, and it's got lawyers abuzz with various, they're nervous.
Right.
Because they're thinking now who's watching them.
And of course, they're going to try to find any legal loopholes to see how they can maybe sue back the NSA.
Yeah, I mean, the back and forth has just sort of started, I think, with this article, because now a lot of things that were under suspicion are now out in the open again, thanks to Edward Snowden. So he's still with us.
He's still with us, and
so.
More and more governments are going to start looking towards the United States. Of course, we remember that Angela Merkel of Germany was up in arms with President Obama.
Yeah.
I don't know if Indonesia is going to voice the same complaint, but...
Yeah, so that's going to be one to watch
another
as well.
Another one to watch. What else do you have?
As is China. This story actually pulled from La Stampa, the Italian newspaper. China mega rail for conquest of the West. Now, a few days ago in the Israeli Knesset, they approved what's called the Red Med train link, which eventually is going to link the Israeli city of Eilat with Tel Aviv, a journey time of about 2 hours. Well, who's building the train? It's actually China.
They're building trains around the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And what this article points out, some of the Israeli press did not, is that what this is a really great deal for is China, because China actually has their sights set on a rail link that is going to be able to eventually get people from Beijing to the English Channel in 2 days straight.
What?
So for them, Israel is just a small piece of the pie. For Israel, of course, this is a major way to circumvent the Suez Canal in terms of trade relations and that sort of thing.
I mean, and for the Israeli civilian population, this is huge news. We're waiting in Tel Aviv for our underground for about, 30,
Forever?
40 years? Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is going to cost Israel about $2 billion, the Israeli portion of it. And I think within the next 5 years, they're planning to have this actually come to fruition. So this is a huge development in terms of infrastructure, transportation,
and
trade.
it was picked up by La Stampa.
Yeah.
Random.
Amazing stuff. I mean, this is if it plays out, it's going to be a really, I think, precedent-setting in terms of train travel.
Indeed.
Yeah. Russia Today has a great headline.
Is it anti-U.S.?
No, it's just telling the truth.
Yeah.
It says, 1 in 4 Americans don't know Earth circles sun. So,
I'm an American. Adds to a long list of what Americans
don't know. Yeah. I mean, of course, the RT.com was quick to seize on this National Science Foundation survey.
I'm sure it wasn't heading the New York Post or any...
it hit some of the American papers, but it was really the British and the Russians seemed to enjoy playing it up, And
don't they always?
I think Americans would know if they just, sort of thought about it a little bit. Maybe they were too distracted by other things when they...
Perhaps. But I mean, there's always the famous YouTube videos of people walking around America asking them during the Iraq War, where's Baghdad? And
they're like, well, somewhere near Cleveland.
Exactly.
So we got some learning to do in the States.
So this is a little it's hard.
There.
It's hard science. I mean, not everyone remembers that.
Not everyone remembers their, astronomy class from.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they should.
Exactly.
Let's face it. So we have time for one more.
Earth circles New York. I think that's what they think.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Actually, by the way, fewer than half of the study participants were aware that human beings evolved from other animals.
So what do they think we came from?
Outer space.
From New York. Everything's from New York. What else do we have?
A book in France is causing a controversy. The book is called Tous à poil, or All in the Buff. Now, this is a book that's supposed to enable kids to understand that regardless of your body type, it's okay. But Jean-François Copé, who's the leader of France's center-right opposition party, is claiming that this book is being forced on kids as an ideologically rigid socialist experiment.
Okay. Saying what? What the claiming that...
That it's trying to subvert traditional family values and that it's playing into the whole gay marriage issue. There could be a dark Jewish subtext here that some people are talking about, left wing. And so the right wing is coming out and saying kids should not be looking at this book with, police officers taking off their clothes on the beach. It's very tastefully done,
It is. It pairs up so well with the book about why French women don't get fat.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that usually
your body.
Yeah,
eat whatever you want.
You wouldn't think it would cause a controversy in France, but again, France is kind of a fractured society with very right wing, very left wing, and this book is kind of uncomfortably in the middle at the moment. So, sales have skyrocketed, of course,
I think you
following the politicians' comments.
Buy it for your friends and children and so forth.
Copies for those in the studio.
Exactly. We need some of that. Anthony Grant, you'll be back very soon.
Thank you.
And on to our next topic. The Italian president, Giorgio Napolitano, will be meeting center-left leader Matteo Renzi in Rome. This is according to a statement. And he's expected to ask him to try to form the country's 65th government since World War II. To hear more about it, we are joined in studio by Channel 1's Foreign Affairs editor, Oren Nahari. Good morning, Oren.
Hello, good morning.
We're going to see a quick report and then chat.
Sure. He will most likely become the youngest president in the EU bloc and the youngest Italian prime minister ever. But can Matteo Renzi deliver? 3 days after Enrico Letta's coalition dissolved, the question remains open.
Let's hope that Renzi, who will be appointed shortly, will be given enough time to do things. I know he is a man who wants to spur things forward, and let's hope that is true because Italy really, really needs that.
He needs to be very successful. It is very difficult for him to be successful, so the odds are against him.
39-year-old Renzi's path to the Prime Minister's office began in 2004, when he was elected as president of the Florence region. In 2009, the enthusiastic, popular young politician became the mayor of Florence, and in 2012, reached the top of Italy's Democratic Party. Over the last few months, he gained exposure in sharp attacks on Letta and his administration.
We are facing a crossroad. On one side, there is a clear option to immediately dissolve this government and to go to elections. On the other side is the option to transfer this government into a government that can carry out reforms.
The Italian political arena has known many rising and falling stars, from the controversial Silvio Berlusconi to the exiting Prime Minister Enrico Letta, who had to leave office only 10 months after his inauguration. The multiple party system seems to be problematic for the Italian leaders. Renzi, however, hopes not to get kicked out of the shoe-shaped peninsula.
Oren, what comes to mind when I see pictures of Renzi, and you hear a little bit of his background, is he's the new Obama, he's the new Blair, this charismatic young leader that really didn't have a huge, extensive political background, but he's forcing his way to the top very quickly.
It's funny because I thought he's more like perhaps a new Lapid or a new Bennett, meaning that he's promising the new politics, but somehow old politics takes a part. Let's remember, first of all, how he got to be prime minister. Because of an old-fashioned coup, stabbing in the back, if you will, his old party leader. He said from the outside that he'll be prime minister only through the ballot. Nonsense. He came through a backstabbing, a vote of confidence in his own party leader. The old party leader, Enrico Letta, had to resign.
Right.
On the day he resigned, by the way, the first good results of Italian economy in the last 3 years. That's beside the point. And who is his biggest ally? Not people from his own party, but none other than Silvio Berlusconi.
Who is the last person to actually be elected through the ballot.
Exactly. So there is a problem in it that you promise the new politics, but somehow you're very much in the old politics. His father was a stalwart of the old Christian Democrat Party, those who ruled Italy for 50 years or so until Berlusconi came into power from the end of World War II. On the other hand, he's young, he's 39, he's handsome, looks good, promises a lot of things. What we'll be able to achieve, that's a different matter.
But does it really matter? I mean, his predecessors, as you said, didn't succeed. Berlusconi is the only one that actually has been elected and held office that wasn't appointed. Does it really matter that he wasn't appointed? Do Italians, put their finger on that and say, wait, we need elections and appoint him correctly?
Perhaps they don't say it, but I'm old-fashioned in the way that I think that you need to have a clear mandate from the people. If you want to do, especially if you want to do huge reforms, you have to be elected to do it.
Right.
You have to come and say, okay, you voted for me, now give me 2, 3, 4 years to show you what I can do. If you only do it through political maneuvers, there is somehow a problem in it, in my view. On the other hand, of course, there is tiredness and cynicism and what have you in Italy. But the point is that he's coming to power in the old political roots, not through ballot, not through let's go out, do reform, do election, let's see what we elect people for, and then we'll sweep out the old. The problem is the Italian politics is between the old and the new. There is some new. Beppe Grillo, a comedian who formed a party of against, not for anything, but against a lot of things. And he is the biggest party. Of course, he won't come into coalition. So the coalition now is between the socialists and the party of Berlusconi, right. A left-right coalition that is, of course, paralyzed. So now, where do we go from here? I don't know.
And speaking about the old and new, someone that is still very much a force in Italy is Silvio Berlusconi, yes. Despite his trials, despite the image that has been almost tarnished completely by the world media.
We are talking Italy, perhaps exactly. Because of his image, not despite his image. But yes, Silvio Berlusconi, the Cavaliere, first of all, he's hugely popular. I'm putting aside his machoism and all the rumors, or not rumors, all the facts about his behavior.
We saw video.
He is on video, yes. And okay, so Italy is a different political culture than, let's say, a semi-puritanical and in some ways hypocrite United States and right. Other countries. But again, Berlusconi is a self-made billionaire, although the methods are not totally clear, right. And he promises a lot of things. And let's remember that Europe and the United States and Israel and all the countries in the world are more conservative than we think. They are more right-wing than left-wing. And the Cavaliere, putting his side on it, is still hugely popular.
We'll be back. Welcome back. It's still Monday, February 17th, 2014. This is still the morning edition, and I'm still Yael Wissner-Levy. Thank you for staying with us. An extra 5,000 troops are on standby to support the communities hit by flooding as the UK government faced calls for a halt to home building on flood plains. More than 11,000 properties remain without power following the recent storms, and the devastating floods are set to continue as more heavy rain hits already saturated ground. To hear more about it, we're joined in studio by the I-24 News correspondent, Yasmin Kay. Hi, Yasmin. Thank you for joining us. Thanks. We're going to take a quick look at the next report.
Mommy's here.
Southwest England is experiencing the wettest January in 250 years. Thousands of UK homes lost electricity as dozens of severe flood warnings were issued in the past few days. 3,000 military personnel were already assigned to join the various relief efforts, and many more are expected to follow. On Saturday, British Prime Minister David Cameron visited Surrey and tried to urge the public to hold on as more help was on its way.
This is a vast national effort where we're bringing all the resources of our country together, and what we do in the next 24 hours is vital because tragically the river levels will rise again, and so every sandbag delivered, every house helped, every flood barrier put in place can make a big difference.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Ed Miliband blamed the Tory government for failing to prepare the UK for such weather, citing the climate change as a threat to national security, which the Conservatives are simply unaware of. On his part, Prime Minister Cameron did not deny that the lesson lies in these stormy times.
I think we've had a huge joined-up national effort, and we've stood up proper emergency service responses in every part of the country affected. But of course, there are always lessons to be learned. Those emergency services can always call on the military. I think getting the military in has made a big difference. I've seen this here for myself, but we'll learn the lessons afterwards.
Still, recent polls are favorable of the Labour leader's position. According to Comres, nearly 50% are convinced the damages are due to man-made climate change. The next general elections in the UK are due in May 2015, and the Labour hopes that the bad weather hovering over Cameron's government will not go away so easily.
And we're also joined from London by the I24 News correspondent there, Jonathan Sakardati. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So what's the latest, outside your window, I don't know if there's flooding in London, of course, but what's the latest that you're hearing?
Well, here in London, we've been pretty lucky, actually, seeing all these terrible images. We've been relatively unscathed by the extreme weather. But as you heard in the report there, 5,000 more troops on standby, more rain expected, and 16 flood warnings still active. So while water is being pumped out of flooded areas, it won't really help as there's going to be more rain. And so it's fighting something of a losing battle against the natural forces of the weather.
And we've seen the Prime Minister, David Cameron, do his kind of rounds around the affected areas. Has the government been given any recommendations, warnings to citizens?
Well, at this stage, David Cameron made it clear already during a press conference a few days ago that no expense would be spared, that money was no object in the relief effort. But of course, political capital's been made from that, with Ed Miliband asking exactly what that means and what that meant about the redundancies in the Environment Agency, which he said would in fact have an effect on the UK's ability to withstand future weather conditions like this. So political capital will be made from these events, as is always the case. But in the meantime, the army is out in force, and we even saw Princes William and Harry lending a hand in Datchet a few days ago to help move sandbags and help people who needed relief in the floods. So there is a stiff upper lip that's being put on these things. And also the government has said that it will do what it needs to help people. So whether that comes through or not remains to be seen.
And Yasmin, of course, as Jonathan said, through natural disasters, always the politics kind of seeps through, and England is not a stranger to that. Of course, Ed Miliband is being very rhetorically loud, I would say, and taking it to a very political side.
Yes, exactly. What he's doing is he's basically using the opportunity to come up with, to basically point out the problems within the coalition government. So on one hand, you have the Lib Dems, who are very pro taxes upon oil and gas companies, renewable energy sources, and very pro believing in climate change and taking measures to prevent it. And you also have more kind of hardline, old school Tory elements within the coalition who are against that. So that's what he's referring to when he's saying that we're sleepwalking into a disaster, because he's trying to weaken Cameron by pointing out the lack of unity in the government.
And he's using, of course, the catchphrase that politicians around the world like to use: climate change. This is a whole problem about climate change, and blaming, of course, Cameron and his government for completely turning a blind eye to the bigger issue, which is climate change. Is that taking it a bit too far?
Look, on one hand, Miliband did say that he doesn't want to bring politics into it, that it's a much bigger issue. At the same time, he is doing that rather cleverly. His approval ratings have gone up since the whole crisis started. Now, his main point about Cameron, which is making a lot of people think differently, is the fact that Cameron, when he was on opposition, was actually very pro taking measures to combat climate change. I think one of his slogans was "Think Blue" for the Tories, "Go Green." Now, the problem is, now that he's actually in government, he's having to contend with the rising UKIP threat, which is the UK Independence Party, who are gaining more of a stronghold on the polls. And in order to combat that threat, he needs to basically also cater to the more traditional anti-climate change elements within the party. So it's not that Cameron's actually against climate change measures, he actually is for them, but he's also trying to remain strong.
And he hasn't really voiced them until a natural disaster hits, which what usually happens with natural disasters. You never know what's going to happen until it does, and then you kind of look back and see what went wrong.
Yes. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism for the government's response to the crisis. Also, the fact that the Somerset Downs haven't been dredged since 2008. So this has also highlighted a bit of an ongoing spat with the Environment Agency, which is blaming the government. They're saying, the Treasury is actually responsible for funding us. We didn't have funding to do it at the same time. But also, it has exposed some failings within the Environment Agency. Some people have been saying, if it was really so important to do this every year, why haven't you pushed for it to be done since 2008? When the locals were telling them repeatedly, it's going to flood, I don't think they realised the extent to which the scale of the flooding would spread, I think they thought it would be contained.
And I want to ask you, Jonathan, is Cameron going to leave this unscathed? Is this popularity going to be affected by the response of the government?
Who can know? Of course, Ed Miliband is hoping not. And for a politician who's found it very difficult throughout his time as the leader of the Labour Party to actually gain place in the nation's hearts, I suppose he'll be hoping that this is the particular thing that pulls him through and that makes him look like a powerful leader who's strong on climate change. But of course, climate change is, as you say, one of these hot political potatoes which comes up again and again, especially at times like this. And there are voices weighing in on either side. Just this week, a senior advisor for the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Professor Matt Collins, pointed out that this particular extreme weather was driven by the jet stream, the high-speed current of air that girdles the globe. And he says that has nothing to do with global warming. There's no evidence that jet stream can get stuck in the way it has this winter. And if that's due to climate change, it's outside our knowledge. So you've got politicians and experts, and of course, lots of armchair meteorologists now weighing in on why they think this extreme weather is happening. And above all else, what it tends to highlight is that whatever we think about climate change, whatever we think about science, and whatever we think about politics, nature ultimately has its way when it comes down to an event like this.
Indeed. Jonathan Sakardati there in London, Yasmin K here with me in studio. Thank you to you both. And let's say hello and good morning again to the one and only Anthony Grant, who is here with what's hot on the web. Hi, Anthony.
Hey.
Let's not talk flooding.
Let's talk about the Olympics.
Okay, good.
And something happy. Jamaican bobsledders.
Oh, cool running.
Yeah, after 12 years, they were out of the Olympic action. Now they're back into it, and they have their...
It is so 90s, when you think about the Jamaican... It does remind me of, that
It spawned
era.
a whole pop culture meme upon meme, but now they got their own theme song, actually, for this Sochi Games. Yeah.
Am I going to be obnoxious by asking if it's reggae?
Well, of course it's reggae.
Oh, okay, good.
I mean, with a modern twist. I don't know if we can take a listen to that or not, but if we could, it would, highlight it.
Well, it will.
Do we have that? I don't know.
Seep through. Through. Let's continue.
Well, you can tell from the logo there that it's a fun thing, and it's it's supposed to mimic the twists and turns of the bobsled run. So check it out on Mashable.com.
So it's like a new 2014 Cool Runnings.
Yeah, get you into the bobsledding spirit there in Sochi.
What else do you have?
Well, Valentine's Day is behind us. However, Time.com noted that of all the countries that tweet "I love you," Israel appears to be at the top of the list.
What?
What do you mean?
In Israel, you can hardly even realize that it is Valentine's Day.
I know, and it's
nobody
Catholic holiday. I don't know, but
no,
whatever.
Not even because of that.
Yeah, but it's just But according to Time, I mean, Israel was the among the top 5 countries that tweeted their love the most. Israel was the only one that was not in Europe.
Okay.
Basically, number 1. I don't have the specific numbers.
So they're talking about tweets to the significant other, or tweeting in general.
Like tweets saying I love you.
Oh.
No, not I love hummus.
Oh, okay.
We all love hummus.
Yeah. I thought maybe this is like a breakthrough in the peace process, that we can say, look how much love is
maybe in some parallel universe it is a breakthrough in the peace process because hey, it's a start, right?
Right.
Interestingly, they also noticed that the most popular month to say I love you on Twitter in America is August, but in France it's October.
And is there a reason for any of this?
I think it's because the French have a kind of a gloomier disposition, so they wait until the fall. That's what I think.
Yeah, when they go into hibernation.
Yeah.
But August in the States, I have to try to think why.
Why?
Like the dog days of summer, you're just like so desperate.
School hasn't started yet.
I guess.
There's reason to be happy.
What else do you have?
Also on Twitter, a star is born on Twitter, and this is the actress Lupita Nyong'o from 12 Years a Slave.
Okay.
And she apparently started to tweet about what she was wearing at the Palm Springs International Film Festival in January. And it sort of got her very quickly something like 46,000 followers on Twitter.
Wow.
She's got almost 200,000
Did
followers
Anna
on
Wintour
Instagram.
suddenly pick up and tell everyone to follow?
Who?
Anna Wintour? I mean, like, how did...
I don't know, but
did it jump?
she's talented. She wears great stuff. And the interesting thing is that she's now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the only actress who's actively campaigning online for an Oscar.
Wow.
And it's not against the rules to campaign for your own Oscar.
Yeah.
It's just against the rules to campaign against someone else's. So she's...
And I think like any other Hollywood star has so much ego to do that. They would never, they would never be caught dead tweeting about themselves.
Yeah,
but
it's just
that's what's good
par
about
for the course.
up and coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's one to watch. And of course, the popular movie, and so Twitter is all over it, and she's doing well
We'll
with
see
Twitter.
if that has paid off.
Speaking of paying off or not paying off, fashion awareness. There was a fashionista who was knocked unconscious the other day outside the Ralph Lauren show in New York.
Oh no.
Yeah. You know,
unconscious.
A true fashion victim. You think going to a fashion show is no big deal, but when there's all that ice outside, even fashion can be a perilous undertaking. The interesting thing about this story is that
maybe she was just sick of Ralph Lauren, fashion, like the horse. Come on, enough.
No, the horse, that was in the...
So what was it?
I don't know. But the thing is, Ralph Lauren always keeps an ambulance on hand at his shows. I mean, that's...
There's too many jokes you can do about that.
I know. It's like,
is he
really?
used to like making models
People
go unconscious?
slip? I don't know. Maybe they're so bored that they're fainting.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
I think it's boredom.
All due respect to the great fashion icon that is Ralph Lauren, but an ambulance outside every show.
So is this fashionista okay? We know
fashionista is fine. She had a CAT scan. She's doing great.
Well, she got a headline.
She got a headline.
It was all worth for the
on
headline.
our show.
There you go.
Also, in the interesting tech news, Food Beast reports that there's this new concept, iCup. And the iCup basically lets you to heat up your coffee in an apple-shaped coffee orb by plugging it into your MacBook.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I want one.
I do want one.
I went onto Amazon.com to try to order one, then I realized it's still just a concept.
Oh.
Yeah, but...
I mean, and look at that commercial right there. You have like the apple in your face. Steve Jobs, a little coffee thingy.
I think it would be really cool, or hot.
How do you clean it? And the coffee will spill over onto the Mac, and then you have to buy another Mac. I guess that's what they want you to do.
Yeah, and then so you can buy another one. Buy another MacBook. Keep Apple happy. Actually, the designer of this comes from Vancouver, which is also the place where Miley Cyrus has taken her first concert, Bangers, public.
Ooh.
Very controversially. There she is sporting a pair of falsies. False teeth.
Oh.
God only knows
why.
Is
falsies false teeth?
Falsies can also, falsies can. Anyway, there she is with the crazy teeth. Now, controversial why? There was apparently a Bill Clinton impersonator in a Bill Clinton mask, and she was, twerking with him. And
with Bill Clinton?
With the Bill Clinton lookalike.
Is he making a comeback because of Liz Hurley? I mean, why is Miley Cyrus taking Bill Clinton?
Basically...
She wasn't even born when... Okay.
Well, I think she was born, but she was fetal.
There you go.
I don't know. But she was riding a giant hot dog in one act. I mean, she was basically going full Gaga, basically, the kind of outrage that Lady Gaga was pulling about 3 years back. And so it's causing some buzz. Had she gone too far, or was she just doing it for the music?
Or she's just doing it for the headline. Her and the fashionista, they're pairing up.
Yeah, so is Kylie Minogue.
Kylie Minogue.
Did you know that Kylie was a judge on The Voice in the UK?
No.
Yeah.
She's Australian.
Well, she's got that accent. She's not. She actually The Voice.
You're really insulting the true British accent here. Kylie Minogue has.
We love Kylie, and The Voice is a hit show in the UK, right? I mean, it's
Danny
okay.
Minogue was on there.
There you go.
The judges.
Yeah.
Well, Kylie wanted to leave it because she found it so hard to tell people when they didn't have the right voice that they had to go. So, but she's going to hopefully be staying on.
My heart goes out. Anthony Grant, thank you for joining us. And after the break, the New Zealand Prime Minister has publicly denied being a lizard person. Confused? So we are. We're too. First, let's hear some of morning's headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. We're joined now in studio by the Channel 10 culture editor, Chen Lieberman. Hi, Chen.
Good morning, Yael.
I'm going to guess that you weren't up all night watching the BAFTA.
I weren't, I'm sorry, but I can tell you what happened. You know, I do follow it. So Gravity is the big winner. Gravity with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney about outer space adventure that ends pretty bad for George Clooney's character, pretty good for Sandra Bullock. Did you see the movie?
I didn't because I know I should see the movie, but everyone's
the best. You know, it's
it's a very divided movie. Some people love it, and some people say it's a waste of time.
I mean, it's a great experience. Sitting there, it feels like you're in outer space. It's the closest thing you can get to without being an astronaut. You know, just being there in the spaceship. It's just an adventure in its cinematic aspect. However, so it won 6 BAFTAs, including the Best British Film, Best Director, but 12 Years a Slave, about a very dark period in American history, that won the Best Film and also Best Actor.
How much does it show or shed light on what's going to happen in the Oscars? How much do we know about the British
It's hard to tell
Academy?
because there's no one movie in this award season that is considered like the winner in all previous award shows. So it's kind of hard to tell because they even it out, you know. So American Hustle is an interesting contender, but I think 12 Years a Slave will win the best film in the Oscars just because of its importance to the American people.
The
significance. It's sort of redemption, we can say. So especially for the American audience, I think 12 Years a Slave will win, but maybe Gravity will probably win Best Director because of its cinematic quality.
Right. I mean, what comes to mind when you talk about cinematic quality is, of course, Titanic. You know, it wasn't the greatest movie, it wasn't the greatest plot, but yes, it won, took all the awards that season because of the meaning behind it. It was, the best effects, best director, and so forth.
Because a good story you can have through a good book, you can have through a good TV show, but the cinematic experience, that's something that you can only get in the theaters, in the movie theaters, and so you have to take that also in consideration as a variable. However, we'd like to see a movie that is also a great cinematic experience and also a great story.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just assume that it can't happen simultaneously, but it can. So, and Gravity is also a great story. I think Sandra Bullock and George Clooney are the only things, only people that are a little ruining the movie just because they're so well known.
Right.
And it's an outer space adventure, so they kind of bring you back to Earth.
You would have preferred to see a newcomer?
Yeah, just someone I don't know, because the movie is just as good as itself without the stars.
And Cate Blanchett gets the award for Best Actress, for her role in Blue Jasmine, something that is looking towards the Oscars as well.
Exactly, although the whole Woody Allen scandal is threatening to take her Oscars away from her.
Really? You think it's going to impact the American Academy?
Yeah, because they just, not because she doesn't deserve it, not because the Academy members think that Woody Allen is guilty of what he did. However, they just don't want to draw any more attention to this scandal more than it already has. So it's hard to tell. The BAFTA awards, they don't care about that. You know, the British people, they're not going to let a scandal ruin or interfere in their artistic decisions. However, the Oscars is much more about politics and being politically correct. And it's hard to see them giving the award to Cate Blanchett, I have to say. And she did not refer in any way to the whole scandal, but she did dedicate the award to Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Which I'm sure is going to be a big name, of course, at the Oscars as well. What else do you have?
For sure. So Ellen Page, she's my hero of the weekend. Yeah. So on Valentine's Day, she went to give a speech in front of LGBT community, and it took her like 6 minutes, but eventually she came out of the closet saying,
let's hear just a little part of it.
Loving other people starts with loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And I know many of you have struggled with this. And I draw upon your strength and your support in ways that you will never know. And I am here today because I am gay. And because... And because maybe I can make it.
What an emotional speech.
Wow.
I mean,
and did you see her talking like a little bit like Clinton, I have to say? Like there was some politician is coming out there. You know, she's only 26 and she comes out of the closet, but she's not doing it only in an individual selfish way. She's really turned it into a political speech, talking about how there are too many suicides, too many homeless teenagers that are trying to come out of the closet and they can't because the family won't approve, the society that they live in won't approve it. So she's turning into these people. It's a community, it's an organization that helps teenagers come out of the closet. She's turning it into a discussion about how this situation can no longer exist.
Not only that, I mean, you say politician, you're right in that her rhetoric, the way she stands, and she knows the impact that she has as a 26-year-old American actress. She knows, you know.
Exactly.
And she blames the industry as well. She blames her own industry.
Exactly, yes. She mentioned the fact that, you know, she's coming to this speech as an actress representing an industry that implants ideas of conformity that makes you think that you should look in a certain way, act in a certain way,
dress in a certain way.
Exactly. So she's representing this industry, but she's trying to change this awareness a little bit.
And of course, she's hinting, of course, of many more people in the industry that are in the closet that haven't. And we know rumors have gone through for years about certain people. And still, it's very hesitant to come out.
Exactly, because when you take a character, when you get into a character as an actor, you don't want people to have certain preconceptions about who you are, because that might interfere with your acting skills. However, if we manage to get to a point where, you know, it doesn't interfere someone who is straight to get into a character who's gay, so it shouldn't be the other way around. However, and there's a lot of criticism about people who try to out others. However, I think there shouldn't be, because there's nothing wrong with it. So only if we assume that there's something wrong with it, there should be something wrong about outing other people.
Although it's someone's identity and so forth, and they should maybe be responsible for their own destiny. Not
exactly. People should do it in their own pace, that's for sure. And you know what? Hugh Jackman once said, I'm not going to, because there were lots of rumors that he's gay, because he dances and he sings and he's just so great.
And all the stereotypes that go along with it.
But he said, I'm not going to deny being gay, because that will imply that there's something wrong with being gay. Which is such a gay thing.
Another hero. Ellen Page is Chen Lieberman's hero for the week, and thank you, Chen Lieberman, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we are joined in studio by the mega geek author and game designer, Ziv Kataro. Hi, Ziv.
Hi.
What do you have for us?
Well, first of all, I want to say to everybody that we can relax and everything is under control. The lizard people will not come from New Zealand, at least.
Okay.
So those who feared the invasion of the lizard people, because as you know...
No, I just want to say that we've been, you know, since 8 a.m. we've been promising that we're going to talk about New Zealand and the lizard person. So you have to explain.
As you know, the Earth is hollow. There are many subterranean creatures there. Among them, lizard people who've been there for thousands of years, and they're taking control of Earth.
Really?
Yes, that's the plan.
Do you have any friends that are lizard people?
Most of my friends are lizard people.
There you go.
However,
will they come out of the closet and say that they are lizard?
Sometimes, just to throw you off. So one person we shouldn't fear is John Key, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. He is not a lizard person.
And why did he feel the urge to
because
address
he
the
was
nation?
asked in an official inquiry that the people can send, and he had to respond.
Really? I mean,
but he waited the whole 20 days that is allocated before he answered those accusations.
Well, I mean, he had to research himself, make sure that he is not a reptile.
He had to go, and he says that. He says that he went through all the examination, and he can say that he is definitely not a lizard person. That means that there's another high-ranking lizard person somewhere in New Zealand. And we should make sure we find him.
We out him.
And make sure that he's out of power. Because we cannot let those lizard people take over the world. Not easily, not without a fight.
I'm so confused.
Maybe you should write an inquiry to Benjamin Netanyahu.
We should do that.
Maybe he is a lizard person.
Do that. Maybe he is.
I mean, you have to help Ken here. She's a little bit lost.
Yeah,
so.
I'll help you.
I don't know any lizard people.
Maybe Ellen Page is also.
You don't know that you don't know that you know lizard people. Lizard people are all over the place. And yes, and that's. I think we'll wrap that one and go on.
We understood that. And if you do know any more lizard people, please inform the public.
Yes, I will.
Public service to all of us.
I will tweet about it and gain thousands of followers this way.
What else do you have, Frank?
Let's move on. Dune, the book by Frank Herbert was adapted to television and for movies several times.
Right.
The most known version is the one for the cinema. The original was almost 6 hours. It was cut down to 3 hours. But a new documentary is coming out talking about Alexander Jodorowsky, was supposed to create his vision of Dune. And from the trailer to the documentary, this thing would have been epic. I mean, really epic.
What would have made it epic?
Well, first of all, the whole vision that he shows, we see glimpses of it in the trailers about the visuals, how he wanted to create the constructs and the spaceships and everything.
Right.
It's just amazing. He wanted to bring Salvador Dali to be the emperor of the galaxy.
Mick Jagger
was supposed to be one of the names, and by the way, the one that we had was with Sting. So. At least that was adopted. Really, H.R. Geiger to be brought in as the designer, and he did the aliens, the original Alien. So really, really some intense and beautiful design. You can see now on the screen. It saddens me that this vision did not come to life.
But it might be that the documentary is even more interesting than the vision.
It's definitely for people who love the book and for people who love science fiction, this is a must as a documentary, because it really goes into all the details of what could have been probably one of the most bizarre and definitely amazing. Even if it would have been a failure, it would be an amazing experience if we talked about the cinematographic experience, because again, just from the trailer, it looks like something I would have watched, and I will definitely watch the trailer, and all my lizard people friends watch it as well.
I watched the trailer, and it is bizarre is the right word, and intriguing as well.
Yeah, and the point is that they talk about is that the director, Jodorowsky, did not read the book. He intended to read, but since he didn't do the thing. So I don't know how he came up with all these things, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Without reading the book, he probably could have created the best adaptation of Dune ever.
And it comes out very soon on March 7th, and we're excited, and you'll tell us how it was when it comes
now for the next thing that people are excited about, and is cinema related, so it's a good thing that you're here and you talk about the BAFTA. Several years ago, in the 80s, Back to the Future 2. Several years. In lizard time,
it's nothing.
Back to the Future 2. This is 1. 2 was has shown many cool things. One of them was the hoverboard, but the next best thing was the self-lacing Nike shoes. And in 2011, those shoes were, here they are, were supposed to come out. At least there was a whole thing. But apparently it was just the design, just the appearance of the shoes.
Right.
There were 1,500 made, all sold through eBay for a fund for Michael J. Fox Foundation for Alzheimer and Parkinson, and now the designer of Nike said that 2015 is going to be the day where we're going to see power laces. So you'll be able to put the shoes, and they will lace themselves. And we don't know exactly with what design they will come. Probably something similar to that one.
And how much they're going to cost?
And we don't know.
Come on.
We don't know. It will cost whatever it will cost. I'm saving now. I need this. This is brilliant. This is the future.
It is brilliant, but do you believe them when they say 2015? They said 2011, and
no, they came out with something, not the real thing.
They could have done it years ago. They're waiting for 2015 because that's a symbolic date.
Exactly, because it was 2015. When they exactly. One of the theories is that they didn't want to create any paradox. No, they didn't want to create paradox. It's not PR. It's not
sorry,
only PR.
I'm the cynic.
It's
I have to be the
real
cynic
paradox. If they would have created the shoes before, everything would have been ruined, and then Doc would have to fly in here and do his thing and ruin everything for us, and then
really,
yes.
Think about people who are paralyzed and they can't tie their shoes.
Right.
That can be perfect.
No, actually,
for them.
it is. My mom she has a few health issues, and this, if we're on a serious note, this is a really terrific thing for her and for other people in her condition.
Indeed. And it wipes out the Velcro. No more Velcro.
Yes, no more Velcro.
Exactly. Good. Chen Lieberman, Ziv Kataro, thank you to both of you. And we're going to be back tomorrow for another edition of I-24 News Morning Edition. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter and on our website, i24news.tv. We'll see you tomorrow.